Okay, first lesson when it comes to art. We need to understand that anything you're going to draw throughout the entire year is going to rely on shapes and lines. If you remember, triangles, squares, circles, ellipses, rectangles, all of these are what we call geometric shapes. They're the ones you see on street signs. There's also another kind of shape, the ones that have weird edges. They're not really easy to measure. We call those organic shapes. So if this is a review, it's short. Organic shapes are not easy to measure, as I mentioned, and so the question becomes, what shapes do I use? If you take a Dutch Bros cup and you look at the picture by itself, you'll see that the top is more of a triangle shape. There's a curved line here rather than a straight line. And breaking it down, I could just draw a rectangle for the cup, but that's not really the shape that I'm seeing. It has angled lines and curved edges, so in order to make it look like a cup, I have to pay attention to the difference in space. Try not to forget there are also details on this cup. There's logos, there's the colored lines, as well as the curved lines that run across it. When you're drawing something, it's really important to pay attention to all of the details, every line, every shape that you see in that image. Moving on to the next part of this, the question becomes, how do I make my drawing look real? And the short, choppy lines don't do it. You want to try to get smooth lines. Smoother the line, the better the drawing. When you use lines that are too thick, you end up with something that looks flat and kind of boring. So making sure that if a line is thin in what you're looking at, you pay attention to that line weight. Another detail would be that not all straight looking lines are straight. So the edge of the cup isn't straight. Even though we're paying attention to line weight here, there's still that organic foam on top that has texture to it. They're not easy to draw, so you want to kind of mimic that with just a couple short images that give you the feel of what you're drawing or the impression of what you're drawing, but you don't have to get every little itty-bitty detail on there, just enough to make it look like what you're seeing. When you add color, things get a lot more complicated, so it's best to start with simple flat colors first. Color is part of the detail, though it's pretty advanced. So texture is a big one. Making sure that if you only see part of an image, you're not drawing the full image. Not using straight lines if the line that you're seeing isn't straight. Those are all really important details. If I add in shading and I darken up these edges, that's where I can use the pencil to, instead of drawing a nice thick line, I can add shades to it. You can use a white pencil or a blue pencil to add some extra details, things like highlights. The shading that we did gave it what's called contrast. And then you also want to make sure that you're adding in anything that you like, that you want on the cup. So we're breaking it down to what is it made of. We had a triangle on top and a cup shape on the bottom, which was kind of a rectangle. There's 3 lines, some words. The curvy lines that mark the edges of the cup, those are actually used for measurements. So if you're drawing this without a base image, you'll have your base sketch, which is the shapes that you're using plus your lines. You'll add in your details. And then the last step would be, if you're using a pen, it's really nice. You can go over the pencil. You can highlight only the best lines from what you drew in your sketch. And then when you're all done, you can go back and erase the pencil, which gives you a nice clean edge. You can do this using pressure control on an eraser too. So you can complete the entire drawing with one pencil and one eraser. You don't have to have a pen. You just have to be careful with how hard you draw and how hard you erase. So controlling that pencil, controlling the eraser is really important. So the last one there was line art. So how you build it is the number one piece of this. Looking at the original image, it's centered in this piece of paper. You can see that it's equal distance on either side. And if you drew a line down the middle and on both sides to find the center point, you'd see that it's really centered, that there's just as much on top of the center line as there is. The width, however, changes. So from the top to the bottom, you'll see those areas where the cup gets wider and narrower. So if I was drawing this with an image off to the side and not tracing it, I have to make sure that I have those same proportions, that what I see on top is the same as what's on bottom. Anyway, anything that you're gonna draw from this point forward in the year, you want to make sure that you're paying attention to one simple rule. Even if you add in details that are your own and unique and something that you thought of and not what you saw, the number one rule that you want to follow for everything that you draw is making sure that you take a good look at it, that you observe it clearly.